You're actually terrible at cooking." My husband assumed that I didn't do the housework and hired a housekeeper because I took care of my appearance every day, even though the food he was eating was cooked by his own mother. He claimed that I prepared it instead of the housekeeper today. I was tempted to ask him if he had forgotten the taste of his home cooking, but he wouldn't have believed me, and that would have only made me feel vain. When I started to get fed up with my marriage, he came up with an even bigger problem. My name is Gabby, 28 years old. I'm a beauty influencer, a blogger, and a housewife. My 2-year older husband, Matt, is the opposite of me. He is an associated professor at a well-known private university and is busy with his research every day. He even has to stay overnight when it was time for the senior thesis. I want to take good care of such a hard-working husband, that I prepared healthy meals and make sure the clothes are neatly ironed. I try my best to create a comfortable living space. Matt was in the same club as me in high school. We started dating then. After graduating, he went to attend the university, and I got a job at my favorite cosmetic brand. He was a nerd who stayed away from girls in high school. I was attracted to his sincerity and seriousness as we spent time together in club activities, and I confessed my feeling to him. It was the first time a girl had ever asked him out, and he seemed to be intimidated, but he agreed. After that, I started to taking care of his look and giving him a haircut. My intuition was not to be underestimated. When I gave him a makeover, he looked very much to my liking. Of course, it wasn't just the outside that I liked. As we spent time together, I came to admire his knowledgeable and dependable side, and even liked his naive and out-of-touch attitude towards girls. Before we got married, he was crazy about me because I took very good care of my appearance compared to the other woman. "I'm so lucky to have met you," he used to tell me. I always replied that I was the luckiest, as I liked him for a long time. We were always happy with each other. But then, he started to look down on me after we got married 2 years ago. "Honey, let's grow up, since we are married now." He looked at me with disdain. When I made mistakes doing the housework at the beginning of our marriage, I ironed his shirts in the wrong way and made creases, and had the drainage clogged by not cleaning it. I was also not used to cooking and made numerous mistakes, but I made an effort and became good at it. I also believed I gave a truly comfortable home life to him as best as I could. He seemed to think I was still the same as when we were first married. "You should call my mom and have her show you how to do things," he blatantly suggested. "Call your mom? For what? Why? What else do I need to learn? Did I do something wrong? I don't mean it like that. But you don't change the way you look, even after we got married. I suppose you are not getting any better at housework and the food. You buy ready-made somewhere and put it on a plate, right? Or have you hired a housekeeper?" He plucked my nerves that I yelled at him for the first time. "How could you say such things to me? I've been putting in my efforts. Do you think I'm just hanging around while you were at work? How dare you?" He frowned at me and uttered, "Why do women get so emotional?" then he walked out. I had never gotten temperamental with him before, so his comment made me wonder if he was comparing me with someone else. I tried to erase such a thought by reminding myself that he was too honest to cheat on me, and somehow suppressed my anxiety. The next day, my mother-in-law really came to our house, so I had to let her in. I was supposed to go out for blogging, but my plans completely fell through. She was a quiet and gentle person, so even if there was something wrong with the way I did my chores, she wasn't going to talk to me in a nasty way. I thought to myself as I offered a cup of tea with a forced smile. She had been scanning the room and said, "The room looks immaculate to the point it looks brand new." And then she looked astonished as she sipped her tea. "This is so nice. It tastes much better than the one in cafes. I'm glad you like it. Matt told me to learn how to take care of the house from you. I've been worried that I was going about it the wrong way." "I see. Shall we check together?" "Please, and let me know if I do anything wrong." I showed her how I ironed and had her check the toilet and bathroom. Matt asked me to come here and check only yesterday. "I doubt that you can get everything so perfectly done if you did it in a rush. I can see that you take really good care of his work clothes too. What's wrong with him? Complaining about your amazing job? Maybe he's not satisfied with my cooking. I'll make lunch, so can you please stay and try it?" She watched me cook in the kitchen and praised me. "You are so efficient. So much better than me." She set up the table for me, and we sat down to eat. She exclaimed, "How delicious! Actually, when you were first married, Matt told me that you made a lot of mistakes. I can see you worked very hard." When she praised me, I felt the warmth in my heart and tears came up. "What's wrong?" "Sorry. I'm just happy to hear that. Matt never appraised my food, so I was worried that he didn't like it, even though I thought it was good." I'm finally assured. Once I started speaking out my feelings, my tears flowed freely. As an adult, it was embarrassing to cry in front of someone, but she spoke kind words to me again, which made me cry even more. "You are doing great. I know you're busy doing more than just being a housewife. You should take it easy. Other housewives are more hands-off. You are very hardworking and dedicated. You need to take a break when you can." She was so kind to me all the way, and even offered to scold Matt for me. I had never heard of a mother-in-law around me taking the wife's side and complained about her own son. I really thought I married into a nice family. Matt seemed to have been told off by his mother, and from then on, he never remarked about the chores. Apparently, he assumed that I was neglecting my housework because I had my nails done and spent time putting on makeup. My relief was short-lived. "Hey, hon, it just doesn't make sense to me. I went to my friend's house the other day. His wife wore minimal makeup, and her hands were rough. She cooked wearing a used apron. But you keep your hair long and healthy, and your hands are well taken care of. Your apron always looks clean, and your makeup is perfect too." My mom says you are hardworking. But don't you actually have a housekeeper? Matt again brought back the subject. Oh my gosh! How long has your friend been married? About 5 years. What does his wife do? She is a waitress in an upscale restaurant. When I asked for more details, I found that the living condition was so different between them and us. Firstly, we lived in 2 bedrooms apartment, but to live in a 2-story house. The wife had a full-time job on top of taking care of the house. And the day Matt was there, she actually just got back from work and started cooking. No wonder she looked as he described. I was sure she wasn't allowed to put on tons of makeup to work. She must have had some washing and cleaning to do, both at work and home. So her hands naturally become dry. After 5 years of living like that, it would have been hard to keep a youthful look unless she decided to do so. I made my living writing beauty blogs, so I was just trying to look good as a job. I sighed in dismay at how simple-minded he was. You don't observe people at all, do ya? You go into great detail about your research, but you don't use your brain for anything else. What the hell? You, a high school graduate, put me with a master's degree down. You and I are on different levels. Don't you ever look down at me. How's our education level relevant to the subject? Yes, it is. You're ignorant. That you dress up every day and pretend to do your chores. You're really just hanging around while I'm at work, aren't you? Do you seriously think so? I can't think of it any other way. You're not a celebrity. Even after the marriage, you stay looking immature with a flashy appearance. It's actually painful to watch. I know I'm not a celebrity, but look at my blog. I tried to show him my blog page and social media account, but he was annoyed and looked away. Then he insulted me with a terribly unpleasant tone of voice. Oh, right. You're still keeping the old hobby you used to do. My students seem to be into that kind of thing. Don't you feel ashamed being on the same level as them at almost 30 years old? His words shocked me beyond belief, and I turned off the screen. How could you say such a thing when you know I make a living with these? It's like a part-time job for a student, right? He saw my work before we were married and praised me. Wow, amazing. You are really talented. I couldn't understand how his admiration turned into such spite. I was too hurt that I couldn't sleep and stayed up in the living room all night. Suddenly, my mother-in-law's gentle smile flashed in my mind. How could Matt be the son of such a kind mother? Maybe he took his stoic father's side. Those thoughts went on and on all night. I went into depression and couldn't do any work or chores from the next day. I half-heartedly served a bowl of cereal and coffee for breakfast in front of Matt, and went back to sleep until noon after he left. When I was awake, I had no motivation to do anything, not even watch TV. I forced myself to take a walk, but it was just dull, so I went home and slept again. Matt came back and said to me, who didn't came out of bed, "See? I was right. My mom wouldn't have blamed me." I had no energy to retort to his sarcasm. My mother-in-law came to check on me the next day. "Hi, Gabby. I'm really sorry about that idiot son of mine. He seemed to think he's right no matter what I say to him. Let me do some housework for you today. You take a rest. She cheerily did the cleaning and laundry and even prepared dinner for us. I am very sorry to have bothered you. I couldn't say anything else but apologized to her. She just smiled and shrugged me off like it was nothing. When Matt ate the dinner, he smirked condescendingly at me and said, "So, this is your cooking, right? You really had a housekeeper prepare for food before, didn't you? You finally decided to make it on your own after I guessed it right. You are actually a terrible cook." Even though I had no willpower, I couldn't ignore his comment. Apologize. Excuse me? I'm telling you to apologize for criticizing the food. You are the worst kind of person. Asshole. He was about to say something, but I couldn't stand to listen to another unpleasant word out of his mouth. I quickly grabbed my purse and got out of the apartment. So nice to be a carefree housewife. I was enraged hearing his voice behind me. Then I went to see my in-laws, who offered me to stay. Not only my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law was upset with Matt, and they apologized to me over and over. I couldn't help but wonder how such a twisted person could come out of these kind parents. Still, he was my husband, and I shouldn't have given up on him easily. With this thought, I went to discuss the matter with him at the university the next day. I had been there a few times to deliver the materials he had forgotten at home. Back then, his students poked fun at him, and he seems to be very uncomfortable that I started to make sure he didn't forget anything. I felt nostalgic as I walked towards his office, but on the way there, I saw him walking happily with a girl I didn't know. She looked to be around 20 years old, so she must have been his student. She looked around to check there was nobody and hung on to Matt's arm as she purred his name. Careful! If anyone sees us! Contrary to his words, he looked quite pleased. I should have kept my composure, but I found myself in front of them. Wait a minute. What do you think you're doing? Are you cheating on me? Matt was clearly annoyed with my appearance, but he proudly introduced the girl to me. This is Rachel. She is a student here and is also in my workshop. I've been seeing her for 3 months now. I realized that I prefer a woman who is well-educated and well-spoken rather than a low-educated one. I never thought he would mess with his students. I was too shocked that I asked him an unnecessary question. Does that mean you were having an affair? Oh my God, you're so slow. That's what I just told you. You see, Rachel, my wife is not very smart. There are so many brilliant minds in this university, and Rachel is one of the top students who are moving on to graduate school. She is a world away from an uneducated, caked-up hag like you. We're getting a divorce, ASAP. He grimaced at me, but Rachel was turning white next to him. She seemed to be shaking as well. What's wrong, sweetie? He noticed her unusual demeanor and asked her worriedly. We're done. Her teary eyes looked straight into Matt's as she proclaimed, What happened? Don't you get it? Your wife is a super famous influencer. What do you think would happen if she announces your adultery on her platforms? People would find out I was the mistress, and my life would be over then. She was looking white as a ghost and started apologizing furiously. I am very sorry. I had no idea he was your husband. I just wanted to have a fling. She looked terrible as she trembled, and her voice cracked and quavered. I smirked as I spoke to her. A fling, you say? If you were so smart, you should have calculated the risk of yo fling. But it's good to know what happens if you messed with married men while you were young. It's better to experience this kind of failure at your age. It's easier to bounce back when you're young, you know? She made a jerking motion when I giggled. Don't worry. I'm not going to post about the affair and divorce. But I'll make sure you take responsibility. I wish you a good life. Yes, I'm really sorry. I'll break up with Matt, she declared, and left her contact details with me before she ran away. Then, the real deal started. Now, you and I should have a proper discussion about the future. Come to your parents' house after work. Let's discuss this at length, including your parents. I visited an office of a divorce lawyer before I headed back. I had prepared the necessary documents, so the consultation was smooth. All I had to do was wait for Matt to show up. When he finally arrived at the house at 9 p.m., his father yelled at him first. Matt, sit here. I have a lot to say to you. He looked frightened as he sat down, and his father continued. What the hell were you thinking? Having an affair? I am embarrassed to have you as a son. Moreover, you are so wrong about Gabby's work. She's making much more money than you. What? I showed my financial report to perplexed Matt. Here you go. This is from last month. I have some projects from big companies that pay a lot. And I am also active in video distribution now, so I am making a lot of money. It's more than double your salary, isn't it? I was making all this money and doing all the housework. No way! Your hands don't look rough at all. It's crazy looking like you and doing all the housework at the same time, isn't it? After being told the same thing over and over again, I was quite annoyed and thanked him sarcastically. Thank you for your compliments. You know, I'm a beauty influencer, so I am super careful about how I look. I use rubber gloves when I wash dishes, and I have so many aprons that I can change every day. I watch what I eat and keep my skin and hair looking good. These things depend on what you eat. It's a false accusation to say that I don't do housework just because I look pretty without knowing anything about it. But my friend's wife, maybe she doesn't care about how she looks. She can't wear a tons of makeup when she works at an upscale restaurant anyway. Cleanliness comes first, so no accessorizing. In some restaurant, you must keep your hair long and be able to tie it back. You can't expect her to make an effort to improve her appearance. He became speechless. And we are not done talking about the affair. How could you fool around with your student? Don't you think that your behavior is more embarrassing than my appearance? No, because she's smart and pretty. And most of all, she's dedicated and hardworking. The moment he said that, his mother sighed and shook her head. The dedicated and hardworking person you like is exactly referring to Gabby. She works hard every day. perfecting her chores while working, with no time to rest. Didn't you notice yesterday? She was exhausted. So I cooked dinner, but you must have thought it tasted different. Oh my God! That disgusting food? But that was yummy. Disgusting? I cooked it. Do you have a poor taste bud? You grew up eating my food. But have you already forgotten? Well, that's how good Gabby must have been. Cooking doesn't improve overnight. You should acknowledge how much effort she puts in for you. Matt slumped down and said nothing to retort. He must have finally realized he was wrong. But it was too late. Well, it seems we have discussed enough. Let's wrap up the family meeting now. I hired a divorce lawyer, so you will hear from him soon. Matt was flustered as soon as I pulled out on my lawyer's card. His parents were on my side and told him not to make any more trouble. Matt, be ready to pay a hefty sum of alimony on the grounds of adultery. Also, if you have any conscience left, don't even think about the division of property. You didn't help me with chores at all, but insulted me all the time, and have never cooperated as a couple. You have no right to my assets, I declared him. I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. I'll never do it again. You've been right all along. He grabbed my hands, but my mind was set. I told my in-laws that I was very grateful for their kindness and care. Thank you so much for everything. I tried to smile, but it was difficult to hold it as I held back my tears. The in-laws promised me that they would make sure Matt follows through his responsibility. I returned to my parents' house for the time being, and Matt and I started proceeding with an uncontested divorce soon after. I was able to receive 70% from property distribution. When I asked Rachel to pay $10,000 in compensation, she cried to her parents for help. As a result, she took a break from her study and was forced to get a job to pay off her debt on a monthly basis. She was told that if she wanted to go back to the university, she would have to pay off her debt to her parents first. Since Matt started living alone, his apartment became a dump, and he could no longer lead a decent life. His students laughed at his disheveled appearance. He couldn't concentrate on his research anymore, and his professors were disappointed with him. They said it's going to be tough for him to get a promotion. As for me, after the divorce was finalized and settled, I started living alone in the city. I feel relieved and carefree now that I only have to take care of myself. I will continue to improve myself in my work. I am determined to work harder now that I was single.